Well, welcome back to the Accredited Investor. I'm Scott Smith, and I'm joined by Bryan Smith. On this channel, we explore the ideas and the structures and kind of the long-term thinking that shape both private markets, family wealth, and alternative investing, all with an education first, no hype approach. So why would an investor ever choose to lock up their money? It sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? But it's actually a core idea behind basically how private markets work. Today, we're going to walk through how to kind of think about liquidity and, more importantly, how to think about illiquidity. When we talk about liquidity, we're really talking about how quickly or how easily it is that we can access our money. In public markets, liquidity is very high. You can buy or sell a stock, and in most cases, you can have access to the capital almost immediately. And that convenience has real value. Liquidity gives you flexibility and control and optionality.
Scott, you're absolutely right. And because of that, most portfolios today are built around liquidity, right? Daily pricing, immediate access, the ability to move in and out quickly of these investments. And many investors are comfortable with that by default.
Right.
And it's not necessary that they've never been through it, but they're just unfamiliar with anything else besides that. And it's really where this starts to matter. People need to understand because liquidity has value, it is something investors often prioritize, right? They just focus on how do I get my money out, sometimes without even realizing it. So when we do everything built around liquidity, we're not optimizing for flexibility. We're not necessarily built on long-term outcomes. We're just focusing on how do I get my money today if I want to spend it. And that doesn't make it wrong, but it's really not offering all the different sides of the market. Liquidity gives you freedom, but it also leads you to a more short-term decision-making. So the question becomes, what happens when you're willing to give up a little bit of flexibility in exchange for a different structure? And that's where illiquidity comes in, which is an important aspect of this liquidity conversation, right? Illiquidity simply means your capital is committed for a time period, time horizons. We've talked about that before. You're not able to access it on a daily basis. And for a lot of investors, it makes them feel very uncomfortable,
Right.
because it removes immediate control over their investments. It's not daily priced. The ability to click a button and just take that money out is no longer there. And they're used to that in and out process of investing. And they usually have some hesitation on the fact that they may have lost some of that control. And that hesitation is completely natural. And we want to walk our clients through that conversation.
But this is kind of where the thinking starts to shift. The reality is not all capital needs to be liquid. Some capital is meant for short-term needs, and some is meant for long-term growth. And when we start to separate those two, the way to think about illiquidity starts to change. Instead of maybe becoming a limitation, it becomes a feature. Because now you're aligning the structure of the investment kind of with the time horizon of the capital. And when those two are aligned, you tend to make better decisions and stay with those decisions over a longer period of time.
You're exactly right, because sometimes that longer period of time comes with this illiquidity premium, right? What are you getting from the fact that you're locking your money up for a little while? And again, it's this illiquidity premium. What that really means is if an investor is willing to give up the liquidity of their investments, in exchange, there could be a different potential outcome for them.
Got it.
Right? It's important for you to realize that those outcomes are not guaranteed, but they do come with different characteristics of return, different ways, different capital, putting to work and are different over time. And that is one reason why institutions, pension systems, endowments, historically allocate a meaningful portion of their investments to these less liquid investments. Unlike a normal investor on their own, they know that they have investors at all different ages. So they have the opportunity and the time frame to deal with some of those illiquidity issues that others do.
And you can kind of see how this plays out in real life. We often meet someone who has both short-term and long-term capital, but treats it all the same. Everything is kept liquid just in case. But the reality is a portion of that capital may not be needed for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or even, multi-generational, right? And when that's the case, the question becomes, should all of it be positioned the same way? Or should some of it maybe be structured differently to reflect that longer time horizon?
Scott, you're absolutely right. And it's an important balance. It's where things need to focus on where they're going to align. Illiquidity isn't better. It's just different. It brings in a whole new way to look at how you're deploying your capital.
Right.
It means that it could be a different time horizon that we need to match our stuff up for. It may be more or less flexible based on what we're looking to do. And it becomes part of a planning conversation,
Right.
which is a super important conversation for you to have. This isn't just an investment conversation anymore. It's about aligning your investments for the purpose of the capital that you're trying to deploy. And we don't want to get that wrong.
Right.
Either we have too much liquidity, or we don't have enough illiquidity, or we have too much illiquidity. These are all different problems that we can create. And it's really something that we need to think about. What are we asking for this investment to do? Is it something that I need immediate access to? Or is it something that maybe I can lock up for a little bit longer for this different rate of return? The better questions are, what is this money for? What role does it play in your investments? And how long does this investment need to be invested?
Right.
And these answers can determine the structure of how we're going to work with the purpose of this investment. These decisions feel more grounded and less of a reactive, oh no, I can't get my money, or maybe I need it tomorrow thought process.
Yeah. And that's really the shift. Moving from reacting to the markets, if you will, to making decisions, based on a purpose and a time horizon. That's where structure starts to work for you instead of against you.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it's all about where they connect through liquidity. Shape your decisions over time, not just one investment, right? We want to think about your entire portfolio, right? Where does this fit with your generational plan or your full lifetime of investing?
And that's really where education comes in. We understand that complexity requires understanding. There's structures, there's timelines, and of course, risks matter. But over time, what we've seen is that education reduces mistakes far more than performance ever will. Our philosophy at Pathworks is simple. Slow the process down so decisions are made with clarity. The website explains a lot of these concepts. It's built for accredited investors who want clarity before making decisions, with no pressure, no product push, just a place to keep learning. And so we want to thank you for watching again. If you'd like to go deeper, visit theaccreditedinvestor.com, where we have additional, education and resources. If this was helpful, subscribe to us here on YouTube. We'll be publishing more content like this regularly. Thanks for watching.